Thank you for joining us here today on Hill Country Happenings News Minutes. As the new school year begins, the Mississippi Department of Education Compulsory School Attendance Enforcement would like to remind parents that the law governing school attendance and the deadline for notifying school districts and the homeschool decisions. The compulsory school attendance law requires a parent, legal guardian, or custodian who has legal control or charge of a child age 6 to 17 to enroll him or her in an education program, be it public, private, or homeschool. Based on the compulsory school attendance law, a compulsory school age child means a child who has reached the age of 6 years old on or before September the 1st of the calendar year and who has not yet reached the age of 17 years on or before September the 1st of the calendar year. The law also includes any child who will be age 5 on or before September the 1st and has enrolled in a full-day public school kindergarten program. Parents interested in providing educational services to their children or child at home are required to complete a certificate of enrollment, which includes a simple description of the educational service. The certificate of enrollment must be submitted to the school attendance officer by September the 15th of each school year. This is in accordance with the school attendance law. Parents should keep a copy of the enrollment form for their records. For more information, please contact the local school district or the school attendance officer in your county. You can also visit the website mdek12.org. There was a shooting this week in our county. Last Monday night, 3 people were shot. 2 of them succumbed to their injuries, according to the New Albany Police Chief, Chris Robertson. At or around 9 p.m., officers were called to the Albany Acres Apartments and discovered a white Hyundai Elantra that was still running with a wounded woman and a deceased juvenile in the car. According to Robertson, the 21-year-old woman from Hollis Springs is the only shooting victim that has been identified so far and died from her injuries. The juvenile was also killed in the incident. The Union County 911 also received a call from Baptist Memorial Hospital, Union County, detailing that a male had been admitted to the ER due to a gunshot wound in the abdomen. The incident is still being investigated. Now, the town of Myrtle residents could see an increase in their water and sewer rates, according to Mayor Michael Kennedy. He said, "We are looking into this rate increase, but it is his understanding that it has to be approved by the Public Service Commissioner first." Now, the current rate is $24 for the first 3,000 gallons, with $3.50 for each additional 1,000 gallons. The proposed rate increase would drop that 1,000 gallons, so it would be $24 for the first 2,000 gallons and $3.50 for each additional 1,000 gallons. Kennedy said the water rate increase is needed to make improvements to the water system. Currently, Myrtle has 3 wells, and the newest one was built in 1985. A new well and water tower will be constructed to modernize the system, Kennedy said. New water lines will be added as well as to bring on 25 more customers and expand the system to the west side of the Interstate 22, he added. The projects will be paid for by federal grant funds and a loan from the Mississippi Development Authority. Kennedy said Myrtle is growing and that the projects will provide better fire protection on the west side of I-22. Currently, the sewer rate is 75% of the water bill, and it will be raised to 100% of the water bill. Kennedy said the sewer fund has to be self-sustaining through the rates. The increased sewer rate will help pay for electricity and maintenance costs associated with the sewer system. This week, we will be airing the New Albany Alderman's meeting on Wednesday and Thursday at 5:30 p.m. and at 7 p.m. This week, there's a point of interest in the New Albany Board of Aldermen's meeting, and they're even having a special session Tuesday night. This will be discussing the New Albany Next plan. We encourage you to watch especially towards the end when they start discussing this. There was some discussion about the mayor's raise and not getting a raise. There was some discussion about assigning a city planner and not assigning a city planner, about who is to take point on all of this. Mr. Barber did say that the plan included extensive public input, adding that the plan is the product of the people of New Albany. We encourage you to watch this week. We will also have it online later in the week. As most people in Mississippi know, the legislature in Jackson has changed the Mississippi state flag. During all this decision making, the design of the Magnolia flag will go before the voters in November. Now it has two broad red stripes on the side, a gold stripe, and "In God We Trust," and then it has stars around it with a magnolia in the center. There were some very good designs that were proposed, but this is the one that the legislature and the people of Mississippi put their input on. Voters will decide on November the 3rd whether the new Magnolia flag will become the new state flag. A commission was created by the legislature to select a flag that will be put before the voters. There were about 3,000 flag designs submitted. The new state flag cannot contain the Confederate battle emblem and must state "In God We Trust." This is what the legislature decided when they retired the former Mississippi flag. Our flag should reflect the beauty and good in all of us. It should represent a state that deserves a positive image, said Rocky Vaughn. The new Magnolia flag represents the warmth and strength of the good people of Mississippi. Now is the time we show the world we're from Mississippi, the Magnolia State. This flag was designed by Rocky Vaughn. We would like to hear your feedback. You can email us at hillcountrynetwork@gmail.com. You can go to our Facebook page and leave comments there. We would love to hear from you and to know what your opinion is. The Oxford Film Fest announced that it will be donating $8,825 to the University of Mississippi's Foundation Roy Lee Chucky Mullins Endowment to benefit student athletes at the school. The Oxford Film Fest will be donating half of the sponsored funds and some donated ticket sales from the postponed It's Time special screening event from March of this year. The event was to be built around the movie It's Time, a dramatic telling of the story of Ole Miss Rebel football player Chucky Mullins, his tragic on-field injury, and its uplifting aftermath. It had been set with attendees including filmmakers, cast, and real-life people portrayed in the film, intended to raise funds and awareness as part of this year's Oxford Film Fest. Now, the Oxford Film Fest Executive Director Melanie Addington said, "Due to the current pandemic situation, we felt these funds would be better served helping students than just sitting and waiting. While we plan to reschedule for a safer time, we wanted to make sure these donors were recognized for their efforts. Due to the COVID-19, the Film Fest and the It's Time screening event were postponed." Now, the Oxford Film Fest made this successful pivot to the virtual and the drive-in screening presentation over the course of the late spring and during the summer. However, with in-theater screenings still on hold for the organization for the future, the decision was made to do what they could to lend aid and assistance during what remained to be a difficult time for many, especially students. Now, if you're not familiar, It's Time is a movie that tells the story about the Ole Miss Rebel defensive back Chucky Mullins, who in 1989 became paralyzed while making a tackle against Vanderbilt player Brad Gaines. Mullins and Gaines were forever linked due to the aftermath of that play, and a relationship was born out of the tragedy. Also, the Oxford Film Fest is going to keep up the drive-in during the next few months. It's $20 a car, and you can buy tickets online at the event.org email that's up. You can also search it out by going to oxfordfilmfest.com and find the way through there. They usually show a double feature on Friday nights and a double feature on Saturday night. Sometimes it's the same movie for both nights, but like Labor Day weekend, they showed 4 different movies this weekend. All the profits raised go back into the Film Fest to help with future programmings. For the 12th time in its 15-year history and the 5th time since 2013, General Atomics is expanding. They are located in the Tupelo Lee Industrial Park South. This is one of the largest to date. The San Diego-based defense contractor is adding 125 workers in the $39.5 million expansion over the course of 5 years. Since 2018, the company has invested $70 million in the facility. That figure does not include the latest expansion. General Atomic Electromagnetic Systems is increasing its manufacturing capacity to accommodate the addition of 3 national security components technology manufactured products for the U.S. Department of Defense. This is an exciting day for Lee County and the state of Mississippi, said the Mississippi Governor Tate Reeves. The addition of these critical manufacturing operations at General Atomic's Shannon location demonstrates the fact that Mississippi's skilled workforce is leading the nation as our military relies heavily on the products made there to ensure their ability to protect our country and every single American. We are grateful to General Atomics for its continued growth and the investment in Northeast Mississippi, and we look forward to growing our partnership to bring more jobs and investments to our great state. General Atomics' latest expansion enables the company to increase its high-tech manufacturing capabilities in the U.S. The project includes the addition of 100,000 square feet of highly specialized manufacturing capabilities dedicated to supporting a critical DoD project. This expansion is a significant part of our ongoing efforts to create the most comprehensive manufacturing center of excellence and innovation in this region, where concepts and advanced technologies take shape and form. The platform's integral to protecting our nation's security, says Scott Fournier, the president of GAEMS. We've installed the additional infrastructure, equipment, machining, and production protocols and completed the critical security certifications necessary to accommodate the most sensitive and specialized manufacturing requirements. And we have an extremely skilled and experienced workforce to draw upon to ensure the components and systems we deliver to our warfighters are the highest quality and most reliable to meet their mission's objectives now and in the future. Now, originally, these were built to help test and assemble the electromagnetic aircraft launch system for the U.S. Navy's next generation of aircraft carriers. The General Atomics facility in Shannon has expanded its operation and capabilities, including the manufacturing of advanced arresting systems that helps land planes on a carrier and equipment for other industries. Since 2005, General Atomics has been a forefront of manufacturing some of the most technological advanced components of the U.S. Navy and other military installations, said MDA Interim Director John Rosenville. By continually investing in its Lee County operation and creating high-skilled jobs for regional workers, General Atomics continues significantly to the growth of North Mississippi's economic and regional communities. This latest expansion is a result of public-private partnerships like the one between MDA and the Community Development Foundation, working together to build more vibrant, stronger communities through economic development and job creation. Now, the Mississippi Development Authority is providing $1.75 million grant for installation of cranes and $450,000 in Mississippi Works funds for workforce training. Lee County and the Tennessee Valley Authority are also providing assistance. General Atomics currently has 300 employees in Lee County, and the projected number of new jobs represents a 58% increase of workers in the facility. Now, folks have heard of Amazon Prime, but have you heard of Walmart Plus? Amazon Prime is $119 a year. Well, Walmart Plus is going to be $98 a year for a membership. Walmart has seen its e-commerce business grow enormously during the coronavirus pandemic, as millions of people have avoided venturing into the stores. The big box is now doubling down on its ambitious e-retail goals to help it keep expanding online and to help shoppers get digital orders faster. On Monday, Walmart said it's building out its e-commerce membership program to include more items and more perks, like shopping as fast as same day for orders at least $35 or more and cashier-less checkout features in the Walmart app. It's the company's latest bid to take on Amazon Prime after it introduced its other membership programs over the years that haven't caught on with customers. So as of September the 15th, you can sign up for Walmart Plus. We'll keep a watch on this to see how this compares with Amazon Prime. We would like to hear your feedback on this. A Mississippi man freed last year after 22 years in prison will not be tried a seventh time in the quadruple murder case, a judge ruled Friday after prosecutors told him they no longer had any credible witnesses. Curtis Flowers was convicted multiple times in a bloody slaying and robbery at a small-town furniture store in 1996. The U.S. Supreme Court threw out the most recent conviction in June 2019, citing racial bias in jury selection. Today, I am finally a free man from the injustice that left me locked in a box for nearly 23 years, Flowers said in a statement released by his lawyers. I've been asked if I ever thought this day would come. I have been blessed with family that never gave up on me, and with them by my side, I knew it would. Montgomery County Circuit Judge Joseph Loper signed the order Friday after the state attorney general's office, which had taken over the case, admitted the evidence was too weak to proceed with another trial. As the evidence stands today, there is no key prosecution witness who is alive and available and has not had multiple conflicting statements in the record, Assistant Attorney General Mary Helen Wall wrote in a filing presented to Loper on Friday. Now, 4 people were shot to death on July the 16th, 1996, in the Tardy Furniture Store in Winona. There were owner Brenda Tardy, 59, and 3 employees, 45-year-old Carmen Rigby, 42-year-old Robert Golden, and 16-year-old Derek Bobo Stewart. Relatives of some of the victims have maintained their belief that Flower is the killer. Flower was convicted 4 times in the slayings, twice for the individual slayings and twice for all 4 killings. 2 other trials involving all 4 deaths ended in mistrials. Each of Flower's convictions were overturned. In June 2019, the U.S. Supreme Court tossed out the convictions and death sentence from Flower's 6th trial, which took place in 2010. Justices said prosecutors showed an unconstitutional pattern of excluding African-American jurors in the trial of Flowers, who is black. The Supreme Court ruling came after America's public media, in the dark, investigated the case. Crucially, the podcast recorded jailhouse informant Odell Hallman in 2017 and 2018, recanting his testimony that Flowers had confessed to him. Hallman's story of the confession had been key evidence in later trials, but he told the podcast on a contraband cell phone from behind bars that his stories was a bunch of fantasies, a bunch of lying. The only witness who offered direct evidence of guilt recanted his prior testimony, admitting he was lying when he said Mr. Flowers made a jailhouse confession to the murders, Wall wrote on Friday. The podcast also presented an analysis finding a long history of racial bias in jury selection by the Montgomery County District Attorney Doug Evans and found evidence suggesting another man may have committed the crimes. Evans stepped aside from the case after State Attorney General Lynn Finch took office in January. This prosecution was flawed from the beginning and was tainted throughout by racial discrimination, said defense lawyer Rob McDuff at the Mississippi Center of Justice. It should have never occurred and lasted far too long, but we are glad it's finally over. After the Supreme Court ruling, Flowers was moved off of death row at the Mississippi State Penitentiary at Parchman and taken to a regional jail in the central Mississippi town of Louisville. He remained in custody because the original murder indictment was still active. At the request of Flowers' attorney, Loper set a bond of $250,000 with Flowers' release in December after 10% of that amount was posted. The judge ruled Friday that all but $10 of the $25,000 should be returned to Matthew Popoli, who donated the money to support Flowers. Winona sits at the crossroads of Interstate 55 and major north-south artery in Mississippi and the U.S. Highway 82, which runs east to west. It's about a half an hour's drive from the flatlands of the Mississippi Delta. Among its 4,300 residents, about 48% are black and 44% are white. The Census Bureau shows that about 30% live in poverty. Now, this past week, the administrators from 3 Northeast Mississippi schools visited the Toyota Motor Manufacturing Plant in Blue Springs on Thursday morning. Jerry Bailey, the senior manager for safety at Toyota, Mississippi, showed supervisors and administrators from Tupelo, Monroe, and North Tippah around the facility for a first-hand look at the company's Safe at Work COVID-19 pandemic preparedness and response program. School officials observed a $10,000 Hikvision thermal scanner, one of 6 in the plant. Team members are scanned as they enter the facility, and anyone with a temperature of 99.9 degrees or higher is pulled aside and has his or her temperature checked with another thermometer. If the second reading is also high, the individual is isolated and evaluated by the medical team before a decision is made as to whether they go back to work or are home to quarantine. The Toyota team members wear both masks and face shields while inside the plant. Hand sanitizer stations have been positioned throughout the building, and physical distancing is maintained throughout the facility, including on the assembly lines. School administrators saw the plastic and plexiglass barriers set up in interview rooms, the cafeteria, and administrative offices. These allowed team members to see and hear each other while remaining physically separated. The plant did shut down in mid-March because of the pandemic and resumed production in early May. Bailey said it was a challenge making sure the company could provide a safe work environment for its 2,500 returning employees and prevent the spread of the virus within the plant. Protocols were developed to help the team members who were sick or feeling unwell, and although there have been coronavirus cases at Toyota, Mississippi, there have been no serious outbreaks. And thank you for joining us here today on Hill Country Happenings News Minutes. We're on all the social media. And we're on Roku, too. We just wanted to take a minute to remind you that you can watch Hill Country Network on Roku. You go to PEG, P-E-G TV, and then go to the state of Mississippi. And we're the only ones listed under the state of Mississippi under the PEG media. We hope you will let your family and friends all across the United States know about Hill Country Network on Roku. Now, please go to Twitter and Instagram and like our pages there. Don't forget to like our page and follow us on Facebook. We have multiple pages. Some of our original programs have their own Facebook page, like Hill Country Happenings. We also have one for Let's Talk, Pat and Allen Show, Count E-Flack. And don't forget about the Count. He comes on Saturday nights at 8 o'clock. Pat and Allen comes on Friday nights at 7 p.m. with an encore at 8 p.m. Let's Talk is scheduled for Thursday mornings at 9 and afternoons at 5, except for when we have the Aldermans. And then also, we are re-showing Meet My Mississippi on Friday mornings at 9 a.m. You can also watch Local Talk with Bill Galt at 6 p.m. every day, Monday through Friday. Now, we hope you will go and subscribe to our YouTube channel where we put all of our original programming, and that way you don't miss any of them, including the Alderman's meeting. We hope you'll stay tuned for the rest of the show, and we hope you have a wonderful week.
My name is Maggie Grace, and today we are going to be talking about this yellow dress. And the person who designed this dress was Gail Kirkpatrick. And his name actually sounds like a girl name, but it's actually a boy. And here's some of the awards he won, and right there is some of the people who wore his clothes. And it's really cool that someone from New Albany is actually a dress designer, because now you don't really see a bunch of dress designers in Mississippi. You see a bunch of people who do your hair. You don't really see a bunch of people who make clothes or like a fashion designer in New Albany. I know that gold can break not very easily. And I guess this is fabric. Oh yeah, it is. That one each mule. Never mind about that one. But this one is great. Hello, my name is Alton, and I am 7 years old. This is producing fabric, a type of fabric. And I know that if some of this is actually made of gold, this is the part that's gold. And I know that gold isn't the hardest type of element in the world. It can't be broke by bare hands. Maybe if it was smaller, you might be able to crack it a little. Or if you were stronger, you could crack that. Thank you for watching Museum Kids. Bye.
I'll be so surprised if y'all know what that is.
It's the thing you get from Wendy's that you put together.
Puzzle piece? Type of symbol?
Like something that turns and then makes the machine work or something.
That's a gear. I'm just showing him what a gear is. And it would be metal, not plastic. Plastic wasn't invented back then.
But that's plastic.
You can make those little things, you know, like in Wendy's. Maybe it's the actual first.
Yeah, because I've definitely got one of those from Wendy's. And you
One
you
of
put them
these.
together and that like create like a little thingy.
This one is probably going to be 60 years old, 50, 60 years old. It
looks
was
ju-
necessary for a certain thing to
It
work.
looks good as new.
It does, doesn't it? Somebody took good care of it. I'm going to give you a hint. It has something to do with music.
The first ever guitar thing, you know.
No?
I was
Think
about
about a
to say
guitar
that.
pick? Yeah.
Yeah.
I can see where you'd think that. What did people use before DVDs and cassette tapes? And
Projectors.
No?
These.
No.
Oh.
This isn't to make music, although I can see the connection. Think about if you were playing music in your home that was recorded, you would be playing it on a
Cassette tape?
before cassette tapes. Before you were born, before your parents were born. But a lot of people still have them in their house because they think they're cool. Or you know what a record album is?
Mm-hmm.
You know, the black record album? Okay.
Oh, it's something for. Oh, I know
My
it.
mother has
It-
one.
It's the middle of a record.
That's right, a 45. You'd have
Yeah.
to put that in there. So your grandmother does have one, huh? Okay.
I did it!
Okay, well you put that on there, on the spindle,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can put that smaller one on there, and it would allow it to play. You
Yeah.
couldn't play those 45s if you didn't.
Wait,
have
what do you think it plays?
Oh, this is just the where you can put it on there. It's not the record itself.
Oh.
The record itself is like
not that big.
like a DVD.
Except it's flat. And usually they're black. Sometimes they're different colors. And you
No,
can put it
like
on there.
no, I meant like a round DVD.
Yeah, kind of.
Those round flat.
And have this hole in the middle about the same size as that. And you put it on there.
And then
There you go.
Well, thank you guys for joining us. This was Behind the Scenes of the Museum Kids. I'm Dawson, and this is...
Alton.
And we'll see you next time.
Yes.
This week in history, Labor Day. Today, when we think of Labor Day, we think of barbecues and swimming parties and celebrations and families. But the truth is, Labor Day was created in the late 1800s because manufacturing workers were concerned they were putting in long hours, on an average of 70 a week or more, and the work was extremely difficult and dangerous. More work meant more fatigue, and more fatigue meant more danger on the job. Many union organizers began focusing on these long hours and wanted to work to win an 8-hour day, reducing the work week to just 6 days a week. These days were taken for granted that most people would work a 40-hour week and that anything above was paid as overtime, but that's not always so. And surprisingly, many politicians and business owners at the time gave a big thumbs up to giving workers more time off. And that's because the workers who had no free time were not able to spend their wages on traveling, entertainment, or dining out. When the U.S. economy expanded beyond farming and basic manufacturing in the late 1800s and early 1900s, it became important for businesses to find consumers interested in buying the products and services that were being produced in even greater amounts. By shortening the work week was one of the ways of turning the working class into the consuming class. Most time and disposable income were two important elements of building a strong consumer economy. Isn't it interesting that for better or worse, money turns out to be the primary driver of so much of the positive change we see? Now, momentum was built and it became a national holiday in June of 1894 when then President Grover Cleveland signed the Labor Day bill into law. While most people interpreted this as recognizing the day as a national vacation, Congress' proclamation covered only federal employees. It was up to each state to declare its own legal holidays. Eventually, it became a much observed holiday. And why not? The American worker has been the backbone of our economic growth. And during World War II, for example, American workers turned out planes and other vitally important items that helped defeat both Germany and Japan and save Europe from further devastation. What they accomplished was nothing short of miraculous, legendary even. Work has changed a lot since then, but thankfully the work still gets done every day. More than a century after the first Labor Day observant, there is still some doubt as to who first proposed the holiday for workers. Some records show that Peter J. McGuire, the General Secretary of the Brotherhood of Carpenters and Joiners and the co-founder of the American Federation of Labor, was the first in suggesting a day to honor those who, quote, who rude nature have developed and carved all the grandeur we behold, unquote. But Peter McGuire's place in Labor Day history has not gone unchallenged. Many believe that Matthew McGuire, a machinist and not Peter McGuire, founded the day. Recent research seemed to support the contents that Matthew McGuire, later the secretary of the local 344 of the International Association of Machinists in Paterson, New Jersey, proposed the holiday in 1882 while serving as the secretary of Central Labor Union in New York. What is clear is that the Central Labor Union adopted a Labor Day proposal and appointed a committee to plan a demonstration and a picnic. The character of the Labor Day celebration has changed in recent years, especially in large industrial centers where mass display and huge parades have provided a problem. These changes, however, is more of a shift in emphasis and medium of expression. Labor Day addresses by leading union officials, industrials, education, clerics, and government officials are given wide coverage in newspapers, radio, and television. The vital force of labor added materially to the highest standard of living and the greatest production the world has ever known, and has brought us closer to the realization of our traditional ideas of economic and political democracy. It is appropriate, therefore, that the nation pays tribute to Labor Day, to so much of the nation's strength, freedom, and leadership. The American worker.
Hey everybody, for this week's Channel Fire Survey, let's highlight the Eagles.
This day in history, the attack of 9/11/2001 on the World Trade Center and the United States. On September the 11th, 2001, 19 militants associated with the Islamic extremist group Al-Qaeda hijacked 4 planes and carried out suicide attacks against targets in the United States. 2 of the planes were flown into the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center in New York City. A 3rd plane hit the Pentagon just outside Washington, D.C., and the 4th plane crashed in a field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. Almost 3,000 people were killed during the 9/11 terrorist attack, which triggered major U.S. incentives to combat terrorism and define the presidency of George W. Bush. At 8:45 a.m. on September the 11th, a clear Tuesday morning, the American Airlines Boeing 767, loaded with 20,000 gallons of jet fuel, crashed into the North Tower of the World Trade Center in New York City. The impact left a gaping, burning hole near the 80th floor of the 110-story skyscraper, instantly killing hundreds of people and trapping hundreds more in the higher floors. As the evacuation of the tower and its twin got underway, television cameras broadcasted live images of what initially appeared to be a freak accident. Then, 18 minutes after the first plane hit, a second Boeing 767 United Americans Flight 175 appeared out of the sky, turned sharply toward the World Trade Center, and sliced into the South Tower near the 60th floor. The collision caused a massive explosion that showered burning debris over surrounding buildings and onto the streets below. It immediately became clear that America was under attack. The hijackers were Islamic terrorists from Saudi Arabia and several other Arab nations, reportedly financed by the Al-Qaeda terrorist organization of Saudi fugitive Osama bin Laden. They were allegedly acting in retaliation for America's support of Israel, its involvement in the Persian Gulf War, and its continued military presence in the Middle East. Some of the terrorists have lived in the United States for more than a year and had taken flying lessons at American commercial flight schools. Others had slipped into the country in the months before September 11th and acted as the muscle of the operation. The 19 terrorists easily smuggled box cutters and knives through security at 3 East Coast airports and boarded 4 early morning flights bound for California, chosen because the planes were loaded with fuel for the long transcontinental journey. Soon after takeoff, the terrorists commandeered the 4 planes and took the controls, transforming ordinary passenger jets into guided missiles. As millions watched the events unfolding in New York, American Airlines Flight 77 circled over downtown Washington, D.C., before crashing into the west side of the Pentagon military headquarters at 9:45 a.m. Jet fuel from the Boeing 757 caused a devastating inferno that led to the structural collapse of a portion of the gigantic concrete building, which is the headquarters of the U.S. Department of Defense. All told, 125 military personnel and civilians were killed in the Pentagon, along with 64 people aboard the airliner. Less than 15 minutes after terrorists struck the nerve center of U.S. military, the horror of New York took a catastrophic turn when the South Tower of the World Trade Center collapsed in a massive cloud of dust and smoke. The structural steel of the skyscraper, built to withstand winds in excess of 200 miles an hour and a large conventional fire, could not withstand the tremendous heat generated by the burning jet fuel. At 10:30 a.m., the north building of the Twin Towers collapsed. Only 6 people in the World Trade Center at the time of their collapse survived. Almost 10,000 others were treated for injuries, many severe. Meanwhile, the 4th California-bound plane, United Flight 93, was hijacked about 40 minutes after leaving Newark Liberty International Airport in New Jersey. Because the plane had been delayed in takeoff, passengers on board learned of the events in New York and Washington via cell phones and airphones calls to the ground. Knowing that the aircraft was not returning to the airport as the hijackers claimed, a group of passengers and flight attendants planned an insurrection. One of the passengers, Thomas Burnett Jr., told his wife on the phone that I know we're all going to die, and there are 3 of us who are going to do something about it. I love you, honey. Another passenger, Tom Beamer, was heard saying, "Are you guys ready? Let's roll," over an open line. Sandy Bradshaw, a flight attendant, called her husband and explained that she had slipped into the gallery and was filling pitchers with boiling water. Her last words were, "Everyone's running to first class. I've got to go. Bye." The passengers fought the 4 hijackers and are suspected to have attacked the cockpit with a fire extinguisher. The plane then flipped over and sped toward the ground at upward of 500 miles an hour, crashing into a rural field near Shanksville in western Pennsylvania at 10:10 a.m. All 44 people aboard were killed. Its intended target is not known, but theories include the White House, the U.S. Capitol, Camp David, and several nuclear power plants along the eastern seaboard. A total of 2,996 people were killed in the 9/11 attacks, including the 19 terrorist hijackers aboard the 4 airplanes. Citizens of 78 countries died in New York, Washington, D.C., and Pennsylvania. At the World Trade Center, 2,763 died after the 2 planes slammed into the Twin Towers. That figure includes 343 firefighters and paramedics, 23 New York police officers, and 37 Port Authority police officers who were struggling to complete an evacuation of the building and save the office workers trapped in the upper floors. At the Pentagon, 189 people were killed, including the 64 on American Airlines Flight 77, the airline that struck the building. On Flight 93, 44 people died when the plane crashed in Pennsylvania. Our president, George W. Bush, was in Florida at the time of the attacks and had spent the day being shuttled around the country because of security concerns. At 7 p.m., he returned to the White House. At 9 p.m., he delivered a televised address from the Oval Office declaring, "Terrorist attack can shake the foundation of our largest buildings, but they cannot touch the foundation of America. These acts shatter steel, but they cannot dent the American resolve." In reference to the eventual U.S. military response, he declared, "We will make no distinction between terrorists who commit these acts and those who harbor them." Now, Operation Enduring Freedom, the American-led international effort to oust the Taliban regime in Afghanistan and destroy Osama bin Laden's terrorist network based there, began on October the 7th. Within 2 months, U.S. forces had effectively removed the Taliban from operational power, but the war continued as U.S. and coalition forces attempt to defeat the Taliban insurgent campaign based in the neighboring Pakistan. Osama bin Laden, the mastermind behind the September 11th attacks, remained at large until May 2nd, 2011, when he was finally tracked down and killed by U.S. forces at the hideout in Pakistan. In June 2011, then-President Barack Obama announced the beginning of a large-scale troop withdrawals from Afghanistan. Our country has changed in many ways since 9/11. 9/11 has become synonymous with danger, with endurance, with patriotism, watchfulness, and the resolve of Americans.